Russia is such a big thing for especially the blue team in the United States. It's the universal scapegoat on which anything and everything can be blamed that is inconvenient politically. And, it's really at a turning point, finally, thank God, that Devin Nunes, who's a Republican congressman from California, I think chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, came out and said basically, we haven't seen a single shred of evidence of collusion between anyone in the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Zero. Nothing whatsoever. And so the media is trying to just gloss over this, of course, and just move on to the next story. But it's like, I'm sorry, you've been hyping this for months now. You can't just run away from the Russia story you've been inculcating, all right? You can't run away this time, CNN. All right, Russia. And you know what? Russia is not like... It's not the Soviet Union anymore, guys. Like, you can't just revive this boogeyman out of nowhere and spring it on us, okay? It's like, with the Muslims thing, there were, like, decades of movies in Hollywood preparing us to hate the Muslims, like, and the terrorists and everything. And it's like, there was that anti-Russian stuff back in, like, the old time in the 80s, but back in 2012 even, Barack Obama, your chosen one, like, he came out against Mitt Romney when Mitt Romney said in the debate, in answer to the question, Mr. Romney, what is the single largest geostrategic foe? And he said, Russia. And Barack Obama said, hey, the Cold War called. They want their foreign policy back. And everybody was like, oh, snap! Got him! Romney, oh, you're so dumb. Russia is the biggest problem? Yeah, whatever, bro. And then 4 years later, the entire 2016 election and its conclusion is dominated by the speculation that Putin, stroking his cat, is just orchestrating all of world events to the dissatisfaction of Hillary Clinton just because patriarchy and oppression. And, it's like most people, I think, saw through that, and that's why Trump is the president right now. But it still hasn't died. It's just like, the more moderate forms have given way to the more virulent form. Like, the antibiotic-resistant form of feminism has, like, taken hold in the human host. And it's like, there's such a real conversation to be had about the fusion of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which is the resolution to most of the problems on this planet as far as I'm concerned, me and Space Panther are concerned, and that's our whole philosophy. That's why we made this channel. But, really, it's, we have to just shine a light onto every lie, and this Russia stuff is just, like, it's gotta go, and thank God that Devin Nunes came out and even the Democratic strategists are starting to roll it back a little bit, like, reel in those expectations a little bit. Like, we can't actually get you expecting real proof that Trump is working with the Russians, of course, because none actually exists. And so, I mean, this is the thing, is Russia actually has so much in common with the United States, with the people of the United States. Then, if we actually had that conversation, then we would realize that, there's actually a very strong alliance to be made, a social alliance, against this imperial parasitic cabal that has infested our government and uses it to blow up the entire world whenever it suits their convenience and their bloodlust and, their military-industrial complex and all that stuff. Russia, for God's sake, the United States would not be a country without Russia, okay? Without Catherine the Great, of Russia during the Revolutionary War, blockading British ships. Russia has been so pivotably beneficial to the United States throughout all these critical moments of history. I mean, it was, even during the Bolsheviks, even during the communist years, it was the communist Russians that beat the Nazis, not the United States. Not to say that we had nothing to do it, but it was the millions of Russian lives just thrown at the fore. Two guys, one rifle. When the man in front of you dies, pick up the rifle and keep going. That's what defeated the Nazis. That and the blistering nut shrinking cold is basically, I mean, they live in a frozen wilderness. It's not like Russians are normal people, for God's sake. They're Russians, I mean, but give them some credit for that fact. Like, they are some hardcore people, and they do not go down without a fight, which is why picking a fight with them is probably the dumbest thing that anyone could do, especially for the blue teamers, who for so long were the peace party. Alright, we love peace, and that's why we're Democrats. And now it's like, we gotta kill Putin! Bah! And the blood vessels are bursting and they're foaming at the mouth. Ah! Putin kills people! Ah! And it's like, for real? Like, I mean, if you look at Russia, it's more of a federalist model than even the United States is. And that's kind of why Putin has to be kind of a hard ass, is because there are some very powerful competing interests within the country that would destabilize the greater social fabric without some sort of greater, iron fist that could potentially come down on them. We don't live in utopia just yet, my brothers and sisters. This is not heaven. We live in hell. But, we're getting, you got to admit, it's getting better. It's getting better all the time. And, it's getting better because people can see through the media bullshit, and they recognize that Russia's not our enemy. Russia's the one fighting ISIS. Russia's the one bombing the shit out of these, terrorists that are cutting people's heads off and getting the problem solved. Alright? It's the Western allies that keep prolonging it and just feeding this cancer. Just like, it's really amazing how, and you listen to the words that come out of Putin's mouth when he's speaking at these international summits and conferences, and he is the most lucid, eloquent, rational statesman on the world stage today. Everything he says makes such perfect sense. And it's like, this is why they have to demonize RT and all the Russian propaganda, anyone who criticizes Hillary Clinton, in other words, because Russia actually has realized the power that the internet poses to the cabal and to the imperial, the American empire, the Anglo-Zionist American empire. And so now they basically have to engage this counter program to fight it. Realize at most that they are desperate, and that is why they're pushing this whole anti-Russia hysteria. All right. And now that it's being exposed, it's just this beautiful moment when the ridiculousness is there for all to see. And even the blue teamers are like, it's like Wile E. Coyote when he finally looks down and realizes there's nothing holding him up. Woo! Everybody gets embarrassed once in a while, but you guys have really screwed the pooch this time because you doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on the Russia thing. And now it's just, it's clear for all to see that it was a sham. It was a politically convenient scapegoat for you to use to mask the fact that you ran the worst candidate in the history of American politics and pretended like she was a bouquet of roses. But, there's more skeletons in the Clintons' closet than could fit in, like, a freaking, waste management facility, alright? And that's no joke. And again, I've done videos on that. Plenty of people have done videos on that. Hashtag Pizzagate, hashtag Pedogate. It's all coming out. This is the apocalypse, the unveiling of the truth, which is that this planet has been ruled by parasites for not decades, not centuries, but thousands of years. Priest class coming down from Egypt, basically, enslaving the human population, and there have been a few key human actors throughout history, a brotherhood of light, basically, to preserve the human spirit in dark times, in tyrannical regimes. And Russia is one of those places where that took place, and they are experiencing, I think, a cultural revival right now, and that's why this whole, they have to demonize Russia and try and separate the Americans from the Russians, because there's something very real going on. And, some supreme artwork has come from Russia, a supreme literature, all right? Tchaikovsky, great composer, many great composers have come from Russia, it's amazing music. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, great writer, Leo Tolstoy, and, Leo Tolstoy, especially for the anarchist conversation, many people don't realize he wrote War and Peace when he was relatively young in his life, and he achieved great fame and notoriety for writing War and Peace, and, he became part of the In clique. He was part of the Huffington Post and the Atlantic of the day, part of the elite, class, and what he realized is that these people rolling in these elite circles while they pretended to be on top of the world and in control of everything, they were actually very miserable on the inside. They had this core of blackness and cynicism and misery that they were just masking with their physical largesse. All their money and possessions was to mask the fact that they were empty and corrupt and dark on the inside. And then Leo Tolstoy, in this profound sort of reflective state of depression, went out to the countryside, and he lived with the people of the country, and he experienced the Russian Orthodox Church. And while he himself was an atheist for most of his life, he started to recognize that there was something very real in the spiritual fabric of the people living that simple life, how happy they were. They had so little, but they were so happy because they had meaning in their lives. They had honest work that provided them satisfaction, an outlet for their bodies. Like, they had a real community that gave them that sense of being known in the eyes of the other. And he wrote this book, Confessions, near the end of his life, and basically Leo Tolstoy died a Christian anarchist. He believed that mankind can only be free when he is virtuous, because we require a cage as long as we are unwilling to govern ourselves. Okay, and the moment that we become virtuous, the moment that we take responsibility for ourselves on all planes, spiritually, that we are the beginning and end of every result in our life, every condition of our life is a result of our choice. Okay, and so that's basically it. Christian anarchism, Leo Tolstoy, and I think that's really the point of my video today, is that Russia has experienced so much in its history, just like the people of the United States, all the people of the world. And we are all coming together right now to realize that we actually have one enemy on this planet, and it is evil. And that we all actually want to live good lives, that the human being is a good being that naturally wants to live in harmony with its environment, but through a successive wave of traumas that has lasted hundreds of generations, we have learned to have a society of an empire where we feed upon each other for our own benefit. But now we have crossed the threshold, and we are in the age of Aquarius, and the time for such shenanigans is over. And so I implore all of you to just remember that, anytime they want to make a boogeyman, it's usually just some ploy for their own benefit, whether financial or social, whatever. They want to keep us distracted so that we don't realize that we all have a common narrative. And the Russian people and the American people have a very strong common narrative, and our freedom and our future destiny is inextricably bound together. And so that's my video today. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll see where the future takes us. Much love. Cheers.